What's going on, everybody? This is the Purpose Infused Brotherhood podcast, and we are super excited to have Dylan Smith from D is for Dyslexia as our guest to talk about the power of dreams today. This is awesome because I'm also a guy that has dyslexia as well. Me and Dr. Seuss do not get along very well, and so that mine's based on alliteration, but we'll get into that a little bit too, and those things. But we're going to talk about the power of dreams today. We're going to spend the next 30 to 45 minutes with Dylan talking about that, the importance of it. At the end, he's going to give you the top 3 benefits of the power of dreams and dreaming and chasing after that. It's just important for us as men to go after our dreams and chase after those. So I think it's super important. This is an exciting topic that we're going to be talking about, and I'm super excited to have Dylan here today with us. So John, just say what's up. Let the people know about Dylan, and then we'll let Dylan rip.
Yes, sir, man. I'm super stoked to be here this week. And, this is going to be an awesome, exciting freaking interview. You guys are going to love it. I'll tell you right now, you guys aren't going to believe that this kid is only 21 years old right now. I mean, just telling you, I'll tell you up front, you ain't going to believe it. You're going to be like, man, there's no way. I'm like, yeah, he does. So, great kid. I was honored to meet him last year down at the Create event. And, since then we had a great friendship that's grown. And so I'm going to read his bio here and then let him tell himself about himself to you guys. So in 2020, at age 20, Dylan formed a company called D is for Dyslexia. Despite working a full-time job that required countless hours and extensive time on the road, he felt the need to share his story, his struggles, his worries, his perseverance, and ultimately his successes. His goal: to impact, inspire, motivate, educate, and bring awareness to the challenges that kids with dyslexia face. How? By making podcasts, using social media outlets, speaking at business conferences, and talking to kids, parents, and educators. His why, I'm going to let you tell it what your why is, because you do it way better than me. So Dylan, let it rip and give our listeners your why, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the warm welcome, and thank you for letting me be on you guys' platform, first of all. And my why is because we'll dive into my story, but just real quick, we'll come back to it. With me being misdiagnosed with dyslexia and struggling in school and being bullied and not being accepted and not knowing what's going on and outworking my peers but still being called the stupid kid, my why was to stop that and make sure everybody knows that if you are dyslexic, the words may be backwards, but you are not. And if you are struggling with anything, know that you're not alone and you are just as capable as the next guy.
100%.
So that I couldn't have done that no better than that. There's no way it happened.
So, I love it. I love it too.
Give us a win for the week for you, Dylan.
Yeah.
I just spoke at another sold out event like an hour ago.
Nice. That's awesome.
Very awesome.
Heck yeah, that's super great. And let's dive into it because dyslexia is, I mean, for me, like growing up, I didn't know it till I went to the eye doctor, and then I literally was flipping everything. And he's like, let's do a couple different things here. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, whatever. And but to me, growing up, with it, I was the kid that, like, in 3rd grade, I can still remember just being in there and a teacher, like, you call on you and then, like, read as much as you want. Well, I got to like the first 5 words and they're like, okay, let's call on somebody else. And I'm like, what? I'm like, so it's like, but then sitting in 7th and 8th grade classes, I was sitting there, I was like, I'm reading this, and then they're telling about the story, and I'm like, I don't think I'm reading the same book. Like, I'm looking at the book, I'm like, it's the same title. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're reading. Like, it ain't the same thing I'm reading. And so I just basically 7th and 8th grade, I got really good at taking a nap and looking like I was reading. So, but once I find it out, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And again, mine's alliteration. So anytime like the alliteration comes into play, like I start flipping everything, and then unless I shut that off, it just keeps going. So give us a little bit of background around the dyslexia piece. What triggers yours? How does it kind of work for you? And then we'll go into kind of your story there too. So I'm just super interested to hear from somebody else as well. That kind of was looking at, went through life a little bit like I did and was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually comment on what you had said is when when you'd be reading a book with class and you're like, we're not reading the same book. So when I was in school, I used to tell the teachers and my parents it looked like Chinese. And I wasn't saying that because it wasn't saying that for any other reason other than I probably could not have told you if it was Chinese or if it was English.
Yeah.
Like quite, there was no difference. That's the honest truth. That was my way to display to people, here's what I see. Not any, it's not a language, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the reason that you had said you read it and you don't know what's going on and other people read it is for dyslexic, the way the mind works, Clay, is as us dyslexics, say we have a question in social studies, right? And the teacher goes, who's the president of the United States? For us dyslexics, we would be going, who is what, the means what, who, president of where? United States, right? By the time you're there, they're already on to the next question.
Correct.
So you now have, Donald Trump in your head, and they go, Clay, what's the capital of New York? And you go, Donald Trump. So now all the kids, the teacher's mad because they think you're joking around. The kids laugh because they think you're being a clown. But realistically, you just had produced the answer for the question you heard. Correct. You didn't even hear what's the capital of New York. You were like, okay, President of New York, great. You've processed the question instead of processing the answer.
Correct. 100%. Love it. That's why my family, my girls and my wife, they spell it in front of me because I'm like, just so letter 3, I'm like, fuck it, screw it. I'm like, whatever you're spelling. I don't know. So,
right. So
I'm like, I can't put it all together. I'm like, you spell words to me. I'm like CAT, and I'm like, what the fuck is that spell? Oh, cat.
Yeah.
It literally is like just what you said, man. It's so true, man.
Yeah. So for anybody out there, for the little perspective is, say somebody asked John a question, he's processing what the answer is to the question. Clay would be processing the question. Yeah. Which would give him a delayed answer while John's already answering the capital of New York instead.
It's just because of the name back there, Dylan. It's because Doe knows. It's because Doe knows.
Right? Yeah, John put that up there to mess with me and Clay. It is actually, I promise.
Yes, it is actually. Which is funny that you say that.
I didn't even notice that. Listen, I didn't even notice that was backwards up there.
Well, and that's a funny story. And the reason I got it like that is when I set up the office and I was doing like Instagram lives in one way, but then on Zooms it was a different way because of the using the cameras or something or other different. So the one girl on Instagram, she was like, you got to write it the other way. And I was like, well, you got to help me because I don't know how to just write that backwards and stuff. So she was like, walked me through how to write it up there backwards so it looked good both ways. So that's why it's both ways.
And no, Clay, he's not messing with you. It is backwards.
That's great. No, yeah, and I think my wife and I watched Night School. Did you ever watch that movie, Dylan?
No.
If you go watch Night School, it has Kevin Hart in it and that funny Tiffany lady.
Yeah,
like they're so hilarious together. It's awesome. But when he goes up to the board and tries to do stuff, I'm like, that. I was like, at my wife, I'm like, hey, wake up! Like that's literally what I see. Like when things start flipping, it's like all over the place.
Is the intro to the Jetsons? If you know the intro to the Jetsons TV show, that's what the pages look like.
Yeah, it's just literally all over. I'm like, and as soon as it starts flipping, and if I don't stop it, it's just going to keep going like over and over and over. And for me, one of the things is the connection between your eyes to your brain, and it's just getting all jumbled up. So as an educator myself, one of the things I run into students who do have dyslexia, who do. So I talk about it. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, all you probably like 98% of you read better than I do. I will like guarantee you that. And when we look at that, but what strategies do we have in place to help with that? And I think that's one of the things, like as an educator myself, somebody who had dyslexia or has dyslexia, who ADHD, all these different things, there are learning disabilities, but providing a space in order to teach strategies. As an educator myself, I'm saying this, we need to do a better job at being able to help kids with strategies because they have IEPs and it's, me taking questions out and doing this and doing that, like that ain't a strategy to help with what's going on. That is just cutting things out, doing this and stuff like that, that what's the strategies they're actually utilizing. So when I talk in class, lots of times, like I'll start flipping things in my head because it's like that what's that thing that goes across with all the letters and stuff, like
A
outside of
teleprompter
the
thing or
yeah,
something?
yeah, yeah, outside of the arena, there's that big like thing. It's like that's what goes across my head, and then I'll start flipping shit, and I'm like, what am I saying? It so I'll just stop,
Yeah.
and then usually my brain in about 8 to 10 seconds, my brain I can actually just feel it reset, and then I open my eyes and I'm like, okay, like I can keep going. Now if I fall back where alliteration like Peter Piper picked it, I could say it, but if I read it, dude, I'm screwed. Like
Right on.
it's it literally like when you say Chinese, it's literally like what the hell is that word? Like
I,
So now, Clay, does that not bother you as far as math wise
I
goes
usually
versus
don't
just
flip numbers. No.
okay?
no,
Yeah.
they're the same.
Yeah, yeah, usually, and I do have students that do flip numbers, and it's usually like nines and sixes will get flipped. Threes and eights always get confused. They always placed in a different
Yeah.
spot. So there are some different similarities. Some students like I do have write the whole like if it's like a 3 or more digit number, they'll write the whole thing backwards.
Mm.
So it all depends. Like it's different for everybody, and that's where it's kind of like what are like for me as a teacher and educator, and Dylan, I know for you as well, is helping and talking with educators, talking to people, it's really what is the trigger part of it, and that's what you really have to find out and build strategies around that trigger part, because if you don't, the trigger's just always going to happen, and there's no way to,
Gotcha.
it's going to go and you're like, fuck, what's going on here?
My son Clayton is dyslexic as well, so that's
Yeah.
one of them things where it's
Is
kind
it a
of
Clayton thing?
maybe that's Dylan's middle name.
So Dylan, we're gonna give you the two. We're gonna give you. We started this the other week, so sorry about it, but we're not
Yeah.
sorry about it. And
Hey, here's the good part though, Clay. He's only 21, so we can get there
you
quick.
don't have that much, yeah. So you got 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes to go from birth till now. So kind of let it rip in there about what you went through, a little bit of your story. And obviously, you have more than 2 minutes, but just
Yeah.
kind of go through there. Like you
Boy,
gave
Larry
us.
McNair is gonna be pissed. He'll be
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"See,
yeah.
that's ridiculous." He's 60.
He's 60, yeah, yeah. So just kind of let us go through there, and then we'll get into the power of dreams and stuff like that, because a lot of it, with what you went through, and this is what I want the listeners to hear, is I want them to hear that story of even more of that story that you already told, because the struggles here lots of times are the things that kill our dreams, and
Right.
because it comes back to I'm not good enough and I don't have what it takes, but you are a story that is saying, hey, I'm not listening to those two. I'm not saying no to those things. I'm saying yes and yes to those things, and have overcome that. And I think those overcoming stories are super powerful for people, whether they deal with dyslexia, deal with the same things or not. It's a powerful story to be able to tell and share, to say, hey, if Dylan went through these things, damn it, I can go through these things and come out on the other side as a better person. So let's hit that 2-minute window, 2.5, whatever it is, and let it rip. Birth to now, Dylan. Go.
So I was born actually in Russia with my twin brother, with a 16-year-old mother and an 18-year-old father who had left us because they were obviously too young, and that environment and was all different in Russia, right? So that was 2001, where babushkas found us, which is Russian for grandmother, and they brought us to an orphanage. And an adoption agency put us up. My mom found my brother, funny enough, in the adoption agency, and she went to grab him, and they said, he's got a twin, but don't worry about it, he's sick. We separate twins all the time just to like get kids out of here, right? She said, nope, I want both of them on the spot. So luckily they grabbed both of us. My mom will correct me if I was wrong, but it was either History Channel or some other channel did a documentary on us coming to the States, called Adoption Stories. And it was Vadim and Vitaly, those are our birth names. And we were in a family with a very loving, very supportive, very strong, I don't think she's human. John has met her in September. Amazing woman, our mother, Lori Smith. But we were with an alcoholic father at the time, and he wasn't as supportive. He was more harm than good to us and himself, and wasn't really there or a good figure to be around. So he had left the picture when we were young, around when we started kindergarten. So then that's when our grandfather stepped in, and he kind of raised us with our mother up until 7th grade, where we got adopted for the second time by my father now, who is my hero, my Superman, also not human, the man, the myth, the legend, Dan. Thank God for
Yeah.
him. He
and Pappy was a damn good guy too.
yes, you were huge. And John saw a video of my dad who opened up. He surprised me, opened up that event, which was very beautiful.
Yes.
So he had raised us right, I think was perfect timing, right? So 7th grade is when a kid's about to hit teens and go into high school, and right. So it was
Puberty.
perfect. Yep.
They're going through all of that.
Exactly.
That's what I teach. I teach 7th graders.
Oh wow. Yeah, you know exactly. There. So he was able to grab us at the perfect time to really teach us what really is about being a man and being a man in the world and what you should and your morals and all of that. But to reverse really back quick is around 10 or 11, I was diagnosed with ADHD, where the doctor had said, looked at me for 15 minutes after a teacher said, hey, your kid's not paying attention. He bounces around the class and he distracts his peers. They looked at me for 10 minutes, said, great, he's going to go on Ritalin and Concerta. I ended up being on Ritalin for 10 years. I don't have ADHD. I had dyslexia. And to fast forward back to 7th grade, I was failing every class. I had 40s, I had 50s. And my dad had worked with me and he goes, this is not ADHD. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So after studying with me, he put me into Huntington Learning Center. He invested $10,000 in 2 years of learning. And when you go to a Huntington Learning Center, you do an entry test. And okay, you have an entry test and all these different things. Here's your grade. And then when you stop using Huntington, they go, here's your exit test. Right? So it's an evaluation after 2 years. Like, here's how you did. My exit test, I did worse on than I did my entry test. So obviously that was not going to work for us. Yeah. So we left, had no answers. He goes, okay, I'm going to have him evaluated by a professional, which was Marta Flom. She evaluated me for 2 days and said, this kid's got a severe case of dyslexia. It's not ADHD. First thing we do is take me off the meds immediately. Well, I'm going into sophomore year, which is high school, right? When you go into sophomore year, that's the year where all the girls have sweet 16s and we all have puberty and we drive cars. Due to my metabolism being all screwed up from those meds, the most judgmental time of my life, I had ballooned up and been, 160 something pounds, very overweight, very bloated, not acute fat, that's for sure. So now I'm being judged, and I'm the fat kid and I'm the stupid kid. So rough time. After figuring out we had dyslexia, my dad goes, what are the next steps? So we used Orton Gillingham. Orton Gillingham is a program used for dyslexia where it's a motor and memorization for spelling and the ABCs and reading. So say when we say an A, John probably processes a different way, but in this program, you are saying it, you're writing it in the air while saying it, while touching your muscle and your arm, your shoulder, so you feel it. You're writing it in sand, you're writing it with a pencil, with a grip, with a pen, with a weighted pen, with your finger, in shaving cream, in rice. So when you think A now, you know how it feels, you know how you can hear it, all of these different things. So it's totally in there. So now here I am, summer going into 10th grade, learning my ABCs, writing it in the air. Very humbling experience. My parents were very humbled by it. And at that point, we were, 10th grade. I was at a 5th grade reading level. I was fortunate enough to take this tutoring extremely serious. And I told my dad I'm willing to do anything. Yeah. And we did it. And I was able to graduate with my peers. I was able to stay on the wrestling team, which was a concern. Because on the wrestling team, I was a team member. I wasn't the stupid kid. I wasn't the fat kid. I wasn't the weird kid. I was just a team member. We're all there for each other, a brotherhood. And it was amazing. That was threatened. Yep. That was threatened at one point. And as soon as we fixed my grades and got it all up, it was, fixed, and I got to enjoy that. Yep. And then when I graduated high school, COVID class of 2020, which had given us plenty of time, as it did everybody in the world, right? So I'm just sitting in my room, and what are we all doing in our rooms when you can't talk to anybody? Everybody thinks they're going to die, and all you have is your phones. You're watching YouTube, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok. So I ended up coming across this guy named Ryan Serhant. He's a real estate broker on $1 million listing, owns his own firm. And then I had come across this guy called Grant Cardone. And then I come across this guy named Gary V on YouTube. So you know how your trending page changes, right? All of it's changed. And I come across this guy called Craig Siegel. And then I come across this guy named Ken Jocelyn. So I start running to these guys' speeches. And once I started running, because I had nothing else to do, my endorphins are going, and now I'm listening to the speech, and now this whole other side of my brain that I didn't even know I had is moving like crazy. All these ideas, all these things I want to do, all this amazing time in my life where I'm like, oh my God, well, what is that one thing I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then one day after I finished 8 miles with a weighted vest on, I'm laying on the turf by myself at like 4 p.m. and my light bulb went off. Oh my God. I accomplished the impossible, not knowing how many letters were in the alphabet as a 16-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
Graduating high school, there's no way I was the only person who went through that. There's no way, right? What if I share my story on Instagram? Will it help people? So boom, that night I leave the field and I talk to my phone for about 30, 35 minutes. And out of 35 minutes of a 10, 20-second clip, I create the Instagram and I upload a clip that night. It got like 6 views. I have 3 followers. It's like, ground up. I got a like. I was like, okay, I'm going back tomorrow because that's crazy. Run again tomorrow. Mine goes crazy. Post another video. Run again the next day. Mine goes crazy. Post another video. I get a DM. I'm up to like 50 followers. I'm getting comments. Oh, thank God you're doing this. Okay, now there's positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to keep going. That just kept going, and then to a point where people go, I look forward to these videos. Now it's a whole different shift. Now it's no longer a hobby for me. Now it feels like a responsibility where I have people counting on these videos to help them in some way, and I cannot let them down now. So it's not about me anymore. And then after that, I got an internship where I was very bold at my first day, told the owner how I wanted it to be, and I was able to hustle my way from an intern to an engineer at 20 years in the finance sector in New York. And I was able to leverage that network and my earnings from that to be able to build the brand of DS for Dyslexia into what it is today, because I got a production deal with Royal Communication Center, started a podcast. When you have a producer and a production deal, the producer, when you don't have guests, will find guests for you.
Yeah.
And mine did that in an amazing way. He found me some celebrities. He found me some great people, strong business, strong influencers. And it just started to build. And then one day I decided I was going to go to an event. I was going to invest the money for the first time in my life. I was going to spend a Saturday as a 20-year-old in a conference room. Oh my God. When I got there, I was like, Dylan, what did you do? This is stupid. Well, you paid the money, just stay. Right. I was basically sleeping in the back. It was Map Your Way to Your Financial Freedom, hosted by Brandon Gadoris. And man, I was sleeping. They were talking about money the whole time, and it was the most boring thing in my life. But I hung around. I networked my tail off, and I left the right impression on the right people and ended up flying to Miami with nothing but strangers, slept on a shelf under a TV, and ended up meeting Floyd Mayweather, Rich the Kid. I made sure everybody in that room knew who I was because I emptied my bank account and really took a big risk there. And little did I know that not going to that conference, my life would be completely different today. Both those conferences changed my life, and it led to amazing things. And then I got an opportunity to stand in front of a boardroom and speak to them about an event I was hosting for my 21st birthday, very first speaking gig, right? So took that risk, invested $2,200 in my own business dinner. Little did I know that business dinner would change my life as well. We sold that out. It got me booked for schools. It brought the right attention from a rapper called Tony Marino, who works with Rick Ross. And everything just built, went to Atlanta. And I learned that the more I put into it, the more I got out of it. The more videos we posted, the better quality, the higher followers we had, the more amazing people like you two that I've been able to meet, and what you guys have been able to do with me, and how we've leveraged each other, and the people you meet. It's just it's nuts. Where I can say, I'm 21. I'll be 22 in a week from today, and I've headlined over 10 venues as a celebrity guest. I have went on a tour to schools. I have sold out 2 of my own events. I've interviewed more celebrities than I can count on my hands, and I want to say thousands of lives. And I'm blessed to be in the position that I am, and we are just getting started.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, so now let me give you the preview of what's to come. We'll have to do this again after the fact, because the next event, one of the next events is going to be at Create, which him and Brandon actually invested into the CEO tickets. So they're going to be having dinner with John Maxwell and having lunch with Ed Milet. And I can't wait for him to tell the stories of that event.
Yeah.
Oh, funny story about thank you, Ken, for not killing me and staying connected to me on this story.
Yes.
But Ken, John Doe knows the story. I had forced my producer, Carl Michelle, and me. He told this stage at A to B Con 1. We had stuck backstage with Jesse Itzler. We were not supposed to be back there. Another thing that changed my life, leaving the impact, unforgettable, hardworking, positive impression on the right people changes everything. I interviewed Bobby that day. He asked me. It's, and I did have to tell Ken, like, yo, I'm staying back here. And he wasn't a fan, but he kind of had other things to worry about than me. So, you have to be bold. You have to take risks. But if you're going to take a risk, make sure you have control of where it goes.
Yeah. 100%. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that comes with the topic for tonight is just your dreams and the power of dreams, because when did this dream start?
When I was 19 years old. Yeah.
19. Let's talk about, did you believe that the dream would actually come true at 19 when you first thought about it?
Not until I got the production deal. No.
Good. And you've accomplished some things before that production deal. Which is awesome.
A bunch of dyslexic pages. I was starting to impact people. I was testing out stickers. Everybody I knew had one of my stickers. I remember sending out every time I posted to every contact in my phone, every contact in my Instagram followers, every Facebook follower, every Snapchat connection. If I posted it, everybody in the world knew, who's ever even seen me, knew it posted. Like, I was annoying about it.
That's great, because you need to be, if you want to make an impact, that's kind of what you need to be. You need to be out there. You need to be, like you said, you're bold, and you can't get that dream and achieve that dream if you're not willing to be bold and actually go after it. I think too many times, and the reason why I asked that question is because so many times we have this dream, we have this thing that's in our head, we have that passion or that fire that's inside, and as we get older and as we start to become adults and have to pay for our own shit and stuff like that, and then we have, get married and have kids, a lot of the times all of those things squander and just dim out that fire. And I think one of the things is we get to that point, just like me. I mean, that was me, 6 years ago. I was sitting on my couch over here having a panic attack, over a TV show, and it's like, what? Like, this is not how I thought my life was going to be. I was a burnout teacher. I was a burnout dad, a husband. I was burnt out all over the place. I had no energy. I felt like I had no time. I definitely was not having the relationships I wanted to with my family. And it was just like, this is not what it was supposed to be. But for me, I think one of the things, like, my dream when I was younger, at your age down there at 19, was to make the major leagues, is to walk into the stadium and be like, fuck yeah, this is it. Let's do this thing, and I was on track for that. Injury took me out of that, and then that was gone. And then it's like, but the thing about that is, like, I asked you that question because in 9th grade, I started to see, oh shit, this could actually happen. Like, and that's where it's like, but I didn't believe it was going to happen. And then what you just said is you put the work into it and you get those different things. And it's that moment in time where you're like, shit, let's do this thing. Like, this is real. Let's go. And I think that was so powerful what you just said there. And the reason why I really wanted to ask that question is because I want everybody on here to understand is that no matter how old you are, what it is that's out there, like, if you got a dream that's inside of you, do the work. Like, don't let it die. Don't let it go. And yeah, you may think right now, like, shit, I don't know if I can achieve that, but fucking go after it. Like, you got one life, just go after this shit, and that's really, like, I'm so glad that you said that, because so many people are like, I have this dream, I have this thought, I want to do this, but I don't know if it's going to happen. You don't go off of its note. Like you said, man, do the work. And I love that. So what's your take on that? Anything on that piece to help people in that position?
So a lot of us always lay down at the end of the day and we close our eyes. Our head's on our pillow, our feet are feeling nice, we got a nice fuzzy blanket, and we're the most comfortable we've been all day long. We feel the accomplished today, right? When we go to bed, we all have dreams. Some have dreams about what they want to do. Some have dreams about work. Some have dreams about who they could be. Some have dreams of who they are or who they've been. And the most important thing is those dreamers out there who do fall asleep and think and fall asleep, and they become Justin Bieber in those dreams, and they become Donald Trump, and they become a Ken Jocelyn, or they become a big name like Grant Cardone, and then they wake up and they realize they're not yet. Their decision starts with how do they lift their head off the pillow? Do they take the dream then when they get up, or do they leave them on that pillow and say, "I'll come back to this later," like pausing a TV show?
Yeah.
And it all comes down to action taking, right? So action takers are the money makers.
Yep.
You can say things all you want, but that's just lip service, right? I've said things, and people say I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. I will never not take action. John knows that. I mean, a lot of people know that. I am on it. Like I say I'm going to do it. I've probably already have it in motion before I open my mouth. I'll never forget a couple of things here is going to a school in Virginia. I had parents crying. I had kids crying. I had educators crying. I tested beautiful testimonials of how I changed every party involved's life to help those kids be successful in the academic setting. And then on top of that, I inspired them. I had a third grade girl hug me and tell me she inspired me. That is the most beautiful thing about it. It is so rewarding. There's no price on that. And then in September, when I was able to sell an event my second event at 21 years old at a legit venue, and have all of my guest speakers fly in on my dime and throw everybody in a limo and get a standing ovation where my pappy and mom and uncle and family and business partners like John can watch that. Like I got a standing ovation, and I will never forget that. I really had to hold back the tears and be a man. And like, seriously, what? Wow. Like I had that, when I got the standing ovation, I was like,
why'd you hold back the tears?
I was just in a go mode. Give the speech, and I was like, all right, what's next? Because there's a lot of planning and events, but it was a beautiful moment I won't ever forget.
Yeah, that's awesome. John.
Absolutely, man. I tell you, and I was honored to be at that event, you know what I mean? And to be there and to be my first paid event, you know what I mean? And my first paid travel, you know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely, dude.
And I was so excited. Like, listen, man, thank you for, I've been telling John for a while, there's just that greatness in him, you know what I mean? And just to be able to share his story and go out there. And I know you being able to invite him in and have that, I knew it was scary for him, but it also was that point in time for John. And this is the cool thing is when you dream and you make those dreams happen, you make the dreams happen for other people. And John is also now on this trajectory. Like he came back with a different swag, to him, like, conversations we had, like there is an up level to it. And so I appreciate you, Dylan, for inviting my co-host John on there and allowing him to be able to share his story and just become greater than he already is, because I think that's the power of dreaming, you know what I mean? And chasing after those dreams and not being afraid to do it.
Yeah, I mean, John can agree. That day was, I mean, you can't say the way it was. It was just a magical day. Like it was the feeling in the room, the feeling everybody had, the way people felt and reacted to certain stories and speeches. And, the community that we were able to continue to build on that day was, everything about it was honestly beautiful. And somebody had pulled me aside that day, honest, and said, "Dylan, look at what you've done." Right. And he said, "Dude, not only have you sold out your second venue and flown people in and thrown them in hotels and rolled up in limos with the celebrity Sean Michael Crane, but you've also given other people opportunity."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, right? Like I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about, who's next to speak, how's cocktail hour going?
Yep.
Is Sean cool? Are my guests cool? Is everything taken care of? But it was cool to be able to step back for that moment and be like, wow.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome. So, but something you were talking about, Dylan, that I wrote down here is, you were talking about when people go to bed and stuff like that, and the things that they think about. Things they think about are who they are, who they have been, and who they want to become, which are all super powerful. You know what I mean? And the thing is people need to focus more on who they want to become instead of who they are, and especially who they've been. And I heard the one dude say something on Brad Lee's one time. He was like talking about the rear view mirror. He's like, "I took it right out of the car." He's like, "I don't need it." He says, "I ain't going that way." You know what I mean? He's like, and that's kind of the same with that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's who you've been. That doesn't mean that's who you have to be still. You know what I mean? I can honestly say I am nowhere near the man I was 6, 7 years ago. You know what I mean? It's
Six, seven
5 years.
months ago.
which is
No,
so
that's a good, like,
yeah,
you keep leveling up, and that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you
down to
know,
being one better every day. And my journey through dyslexia, I had to figure out if I get one win today, I can come back to school tomorrow and figure out my next
yeah,
win. Right?
yep,
That 1% better. Some people will go, well, what's only 1% better? Why even try? Well, you do
yep.
1% per year, you're 365% better than you were a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be unrecognizable, right? And it's it's such an awesome concept, right? So, and that comes back to leaving the unforgettable, amazing, positive, hardworking impression. That's the impression that John left on me in Atlanta that led us
Mm-hmm.
into September. If he didn't leave that impression, he wouldn't have been in that room.
Yep.
And
I
that's
can't.
the
I can't see John leaving that impression. I just kidding. And that was cool. It was like literally, and that's the cool thing about the brotherhood too, is everybody that comes through, like they all have their specialness, like just like you, Dylan. Like we all have our gifts, and the gifts are freaking awesome. And there may be like for you, there's struggles. For me, there's struggles. For John, there's struggles. Everybody's got their struggles. But on the other side of adversity is an extreme advantage. You were just Dylan will enough to go through the shit to get to the extreme advantage, find
Yeah.
it and use it. And that's like, to me, I'm like, that's why I'm sitting here like, yes, this is awesome. And again, 21 years old, sitting there like, and it's so cool just to know like you have that mentality. But the reason why you have that mentality and nobody gets to a dream and achieves that unless they go through the shit, and that's a big thing, man. You went through that, found that extreme advantage, and now utilize that extreme advantage. And the cool thing is in your journey from now till whenever Dylan's life ends, is that there's going to be a whole bunch of other struggles and adversity and things in there that you get to find that extreme advantage on the other side of. It's fucking awesome. Like,
yeah.
I'm excited for you about that.
With no challenge becomes no change.
Yep.
So I'm excited for it too. And honestly, this is what DS Dyslexia is about. We're here to impact, inspire, motivate, educate, captivate, and change lives in a positive light.
Yeah.
Let everybody know, like, it says it on his hat. The slogan is defying all odds, and it doesn't mean that you have to be dyslexic to defy the odds.
Yep.
That ties in. We all have to defy the odds in some way at some point in our life, and it's completely relatable. And you're not alone. You may not be dyslexic, but you're also not alone. Like,
Yep.
whatever we go through, you're not the only one. And whatever twist you take could inspire the next, right? And I'm a huge fan now. Maybe I'm insane, but when I do have a challenge, or when I don't know the answer to something, or when I've really got to figure something out, because when I'm under pressure is when I shine.
Mm-hmm.
Diamonds and crystals are only made under pressure, and they shine the most. And they're the most expensive stone. So that's what matters, is who you become through the storm and what you do with it afterwards.
Yeah. Love it. And again, that's the only way you're going to get your dreams, man. Like, it's crazy, man. It literally is crazy just to think about when you look at all the people who've achieved that level. We could go through a whole bunch of people we've had on the podcast already, including yourself, Ken. You talk about Sean. You talk about all those guys that you've mentioned already. To get to their dream where they're at, they all went through the struggle. And that's the beautiful part. To me, that's the beautiful part about chasing your dreams. When I chased the major leagues, dude, I remember I sat in the lunch line and did this all the time. Get my tea up there. And I still do it. I still got it straight across, parallel arms, ready to pull that elbow. And people are like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm making a major league. So why don't you shut up and leave me alone?" And then and they're like, "We ain't gotta be a jerk about it." I'm like, "Well, you asked." At that point in time, I had no personal skills. I just was like, I had a one-track mind of saying,
sometimes
"Hey."
they're still sketchy, but
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. But I had a one-track mind, and that's what I was willing to do. Like, I was the dude that I didn't go hang out. Like, I was on the East Coast, up and down the East Coast somewhere, playing baseball all year for my junior, senior year, probably sophomore, junior, senior year. Doing those things, but that's what you have to do. And some, like you said, some people think you're crazy. Some people think you're insane. Some people think, why are you doing that? Why don't you hang out with your friends? Like, because I don't have a fucking time for it, you know? And I think that's one question I wanted to ask you is, what are some of those things? A lot of people say like sacrifice. To
Yep.
me, it's not sacrifice, it's a choice. Because I think that sacrifice to everybody else is like, oh, it's a negative. No, that ain't negative. Like, yeah, like for me, I made choices to take me towards. So I want you to, what are some of those, what maybe are some of those big, like 2 or 3 big choices that you made that other people would deem a sacrifice, but it might be a sacrifice, but really it's a choice that you made to move yourself in the direction where you wanted to go. So what were maybe like 1 or 2 of those big things that you really had to say, hey, this is a choice I got to make no matter what? Like, people are going to say some shit, do this or whatever, but I'm making that choice because that moves me towards my dream, where I want to go and how I want to impact people.
I mean, off the rip, I mean, financial, man. I did my. It's crazy to say this. I did my expenses for my company this year and sent to my accountant, and I spent $44,000 on Days for Dyslexia this year. And at first, I was like, "What the hell? I spent what?" And then I got to sit there for a second, and I also saw my credit line, and I went, "Dude, you have no debt. Like, I spent 44,000 and have no debt, right? Yep. We didn't profit, but we didn't go negative. Mm-hmm. And then the other sacrifice is like, here's an example. I work all day at a tech firm, and I support stockbrokers, lawyers, hedge funds, all of it, all the top 1% all the time. And that's what I travel for all the time. I worked a full week at a hedge fund. I had to get up an extra hour early this last day of the week. And I had worked an 8-9 hour day. I paid for my assistant to get dropped off at my office in a limo because I needed him there for this. And me and him took my car and we drove to Virginia, 10, 13 hours. We got to Virginia. I drove the whole way. Got to Virginia 1, 2 a.m. and I had to be on stage at 7 a.m. at this school. I was absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
Very first paid speaking gig, but the minute I walked into that school, it didn't matter that I worked yesterday. It didn't matter I got 4 hours of sleep. It didn't matter any of that. It didn't matter I was getting paid. It matters that I was there to change, making it inspire. Here are the steps that we took. Here's the programs we used. Here's the people we used. I went in there, I gave perspective. I said, I'm not an expert on dyslexia. I'm an expert on living with it. Yeah. So I get the perspective to the parents and the board. Here's what it's like being dyslexic. You're going in early. You're not doing recess. You're not doing lunch. You're staying after school, and you're not hanging out with your friends just to get that 50. Yep. And you tell their peers that, and they're like, "Oh, he's not stupid. Actually, he works harder than we do."
Yeah.
Right. Oh, we get recess. We get gym. We get to hang out with friends after school, and we get to play sports, and we get to play video games before bed. He gets none of that, and he still gets 50s. Actually, now I'm interested. I want to help him out. I want to be there for him. He's not stupid. When you give that perspective to an entire school district, man, it is rewarding is understated. Oh, you know, it's a beautiful thing. I'm very blessed to be able to do it. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life as long as I can, because the bigger the wave, the less that will suffer. Right.
Correct. Yeah. And it's needed too. And not just, you know, and that goes for a lot of, when you talk about dyslexia, ADHD, things like that. Those are two of the biggest things that are in there, especially like the ADHD side as well. You know, it's just like a lot of these kids, like, you know, it's ADHD. Well, you got a problem. I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, that's my fucking superpower, dude. I'm like, if there's anything close to a superpower, that's it. Like, because your brain can take in more, can do these. And I do a very simple task with kids a lot of times who are ADHD. Lots of times we find out that ADHD and dyslexia kind of correlate together, but also ADHD and anxiety, high anxiety, that's me, high anxiety correlate because it's a lot of the same chemicals that come out. But what I do is like take my mic here as a kid's head, and I'm like a kid that's like bouncy around. All I do is I'm like, hey, and I sit it on top there and balance it. And I'm like, hey, you know, do as many problems as you can here and keep that on your head as long as you can. I want to see if you can do it for like 5 minutes. And they're like, challenge accepted. And they're like, yeah. And then like, they're back there. So prior to this, they've maybe done 2 problems in a span of 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. When I go back in about 2 minutes, I usually give them a minute or two. Usually they hold it on for about 3 to 4 minutes. And then it wobbles and they're like, ah, you know, but I go back to them about 2 minutes and they have about 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 problems done in a 2 minute time period. And then I take it off and I say, see, here's what I did. I was like, I made you hyper focus on only 2 things. Did you hear everything that was going into class? You're like, yeah, I heard it. I'm like, did you pay attention to it? No. I was like, why? Because you focus on that paper stain on your head and that problem on your paper. And I just showed you that you can focus your brain on these 2 specific things. Now think about if you just focus it on one thing and how hyper focused you can get. You can actually get more work done than anybody in this classroom that does not have your ADHD, that your brain works like. And they're like, what? And it's like, we always talk about these things as like deficits, as disabilities. And are they a struggle? And what I hate about it is that it didn't disable me from doing things. It was a struggle for me to be able to go through these things, but it didn't disable me from doing those things. I just had to know, I had to learn a different way. I had to find strategies that worked. And what you have done, and what I love about telling that school board and those parents and having that, is you gave the perspective from somebody who, like, I love how you say it. I'm not a person who has all the answers. I'm just somebody who lives with it. And that is beautiful, because that's what people need to hear, because they don't get it. Like, and somebody like, I can't articulate it as well as you do, which is awesome, because you do a great job at that. I'm just like, dude, things are fucked up. I'm like, I'm like, it's all messed up, and I can't, like, it's like, yeah. But you do it very eloquently, and are able to communicate how it actually gets jumbled up and what it looks like. Like I say, the best thing I've been able to do, like, I've talked to my wife about it a bunch of times, but when that movie was on, I'm like, that's it right there, whatever
Right.
that is. Like, that's it. I can't put it in work. You just did, which I'm like, that's awesome. But I can never, I'm like, it just gets all jumbled. And then, but that's one of the things is perspective, and bringing that attention to that. Our educational system, being educated for 20 years, our educational system needs it. And for you to be able to come in as somebody who's gone through the system in a recent time period. I graduated high school in 1999. They didn't have anything. They're like, yeah, you're on your own. You're like, sure, try to figure it out. You know, that's the way it was. Which I did. I'm like, whatever. I don't, like, you're going to give me some bullshit anyway, so I'm going to figure it out myself. But being somebody who has just recently graduated, going through that system and being able to give that perspective, I think is awesome, because giving that perspective and making that change, our educational system needs a big change right now. And I think what you're doing and what you're talking about and how you're communicating with educators, school systems, school boards, things like that, is a change that's necessary with dyslexia. But I want you to know it's on a bigger scale than just that too.
Absolutely.
And I
Yeah,
think that's
for
very,
sure.
very important. I want you to really know that and really understand that, because we as educators, and especially administrators and lawmakers, the politicians, and if you haven't gone to any state boards or anything like that, like Department of Education, wherever you're at, please do so, because they're the ones who control a lot of this shit that's not getting the help that kids need. And if you move it to there too, I will tell you there's going to be a huge impact, not only with kids with dyslexia, but kids with a lot of those different things, and their educational system at a whole. So, man, I just, as an educator myself, I had to say that, because it's fucking awesome. Like, I know you won't hear it's fucking awesome at a school board, but you're gonna hear it from this guy right
That's
here.
that's a difference between us and them.
Yeah. So
For sure. For sure. So yeah, definitely that's I agree 100%, you know, and I can't wait for Clayton to watch this episode, make sure he watches it, and he'll be like, yeah, that's what I try to tell you all the time, Dad.
it is. Go watch, seriously, go watch that movie, and then you'll be like, oh
Yeah.
shit, okay, that's what he sees.
And
Any what I want to do here before we get into the 3 tips, you know, through those 3 tips, are there any tips that, like, so even if as an adult and things that are going on, because there's lots of people who are I'm 41, going to be 42 soon. Like there's a lot of kids, like people, the kids. Yeah, sure, I'm a kid. Like I act like a kid half the time.
To me.
But there's anyways, like my age of older adults that probably had dyslexia, were never diagnosed. Are there any tips or anything like that you would give somebody to help them if they're struggling with any of those different things, you know, reading issues, any of those different stuff like that? Any tips that you would have for them?
Yeah. With reading, we have this great thing that we do right now, the three of us. It's called a podcast and audiobooks. You know, a lot of us, I'm sure you can relate, Clays. When you listen to a podcast, you can, and say we're talking about, for example, Miami. I'm sure all three of us right now can picture what Miami would look like, or where, right? You see it. So when, as a dyslexic, when I listen to books or podcasts and they're talking about something like Miami or Lamborghini or Ken Jocelyn, I can see those things in my face immediately, and I can start to see it and think about it. Versus if I read it, they're just words, right?
Yeah.
So if you're older now, you haven't been diagnosed, and you're struggling with things, and you want to learn, podcasts and audiobooks would help immensely. You know, being able to see it and know what they've done and listen, and you know, it's easy today to contact people, to DM, or like John Doe. It changed my life in Atlanta because he taught me how to comment to get attention, which was, thank you, John. That helped me forever, and it's gotten me in crazy places. And big people responding. He's like, yo, you got to comment this, this, and this. And I did it, and I was like, whoa. So that goes back to the impression, right? It's not knowing how to read is cool. You know, it's not cool, but it's not okay. Like, what if I told you Floyd Mayweather's illiterate? He's probably one of the most successful, famous people in the world, right? And he's respected, and he inspires many, and all that. You know, what you do for work, your struggles in life is not who you are. And know that, right? Who you are is who you are. And when somebody thinks of John Doe or Clay, what is the first thing you want to come to mind? You control that narrative. You control that in every action you take. Live in such a way where if somebody talks bad about you, no one will believe them. And I heard that in a podcast, and I've lived that way forever. Like, since then, it's changed. And it's your demeanor and how you come off. Like, I'm genuinely here to impact lives. You guys are genuine here. For whatever reasons, you guys are genuinely here. And genuine changes everything. When you are genuine and honest and true and transparent, those who you want, need, and could ever want in your circle will be in your circle. When you use the genuine and you chase things that don't matter, those people who you want, need in your corner will leave because they don't want to be around that. So make sure what you're doing really matters. And it's not about being remembered. You know, we're all humans. We're all here on this earth. We all struggle with things. It's about having that community to know, you know, you're welcome here. You're accepted here. You're not stupid. You have something that we can learn, and we have something you can learn. Let's all learn together as a team. That's what this is about. Team building. I don't care where you're from. I don't care your past. I don't care your future. I don't care your present. If you want to grow with us, let's grow. That's what it's about.
Right
Love
on.
it. Love it. It's good.
Again, it's hard to believe he's only 21, huh?
It is. So, Dylan, let's get into we'll wrap it up here. Let's get into, what would you say the top 3 benefits of the power of dreams? Like, having that dream, what are the top 3 benefits of that for our listeners here?
The first one I'd say was pushing yourself into limits and places that you thought you'd never be. When you get a call a week after selling at your venue, hey, it's Tony Marino. Come walk the red carpet with me at Fashion Week. Sorry, I missed your show. What? Like, you imagine it? I got that call, and it was ridiculous. I'm in this Fashion Week after party with all these A-list celebrities walking red carpet, where a guy who I interviewed a year ago that changed my life at my first event is having me walk with him because I left the right impression on him. You know, become who you want to become because you want to become them. Yes. Do not compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to you. Your biggest competition is yourself, right? Every decision that I had made at 19 led me to this exact moment right now. But all my other friends I graduated with when they were 19 led them to their very exact moment. Nothing wrong with where they are, but I'll tell you this much. They're not, doesn't matter, but they're not making the financial income that I am. They're not on the stages that I'm on. They're not in the rooms that I'm in. Vice versa, even though theirs might be a frat house and mine might be different, but that will always impact the decisions I made at 19 will impact the rest of their lives. And I worked at 19. If you ask, I'm sure there's a video somewhere. I said, I'm working for 29-year-old Dylan. I want 29-year-old Dylan to look back and go, thank you. Not, what the hell were you doing? And every year, 20, I was like, I'm working for 30-year-old Dylan. 21, I've been working for 31. In a week, I'm working for 32-year-old Dylan. I'm chasing, because the concept of being perfect and perfection is we can be so close, but we can never touch the word perfection. So you can always run that rat race, and you can always figure out ways to improve. And that comes back to being 1% better today and being unrecognizable in 6 months.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Love it.
And number 3,
the good stuff.
Yeah. Number 3 is just opening up doors you never thought you could and changing lives that you never thought you could. I experienced that this week because, a mentor of mine had called me and he goes, Dylan, I've been so focused on what's next. I haven't stopped and went, damn. He said, Dylan, this week I have one challenge for you. Where were you a year ago on New Year's Eve? Where were you in your corporate career? Where were you as a human? Where were you with DS for Dyslexia? And I was like, oh my God. So 1, I was an intern. 2, I just had a production deal, but I haven't spoken on one stage. I haven't sold out one venue. I haven't met one celebrity. And 3, I haven't done anything yet, it felt like. So looking back on that whole year, we haven't even hit it yet. And I listened to my very first podcast that was filmed in 2021. And I manifested 98% of the things that I've already accomplished in the last 1 year. I do challenge every listener. I have a notebook in my office, and if I learn something, I write it down. If I mess up on something, I write it down. If I feel I've improved in some way, I write it down. If I feel there's something I want to learn to improve on, I write it down. Now, every morning, I'll write it down all day long. But every morning before my day starts, I read that, and I go, how can I implement the 15 things I wrote down yesterday, become that 1% better today? Yep. But before that, I talk to myself in the mirror. Very, very powerful. I suggest if you guys aren't doing this, do both of these tasks. It's just your first hour and a half of the day, no phone, no screen. Some green tea and a mirror. I look myself in the mirror and I go, Dylan, here are 3 great attributes about yourself. Listed. Here, Dylan, here are 3 things you can work on. By the way, you're awesome. And you high five the mirror. Let's tackle the day. At the end of the day, after I will review my notebook, I'll go back to my mirror and I go, Dylan, here's what you accomplished today, and here's where I feel we've grown, and here's where I feel we can grow tomorrow. See you tomorrow, big guy. You want to talk about unrecognizable in 6 months? You ever seen a transformer go from a truck to a person? You want to be Bumblebee? You'll be driving faster than that yellow Camaro down the highway.
Oh yeah.
And the more that you become your dreams, the people you look up to and inspire, I've learned recently, many people who inspired me are now becoming peers. Ken Jostin, Craig Siegel, Sean Crane, Tony Marino, people who respect me, Jeff the Entrepreneur. Those are people I looked up to and worked towards and listened to while running, and now they're peers. And they're sharing with me that I inspire them in many ways. And I'm like, how did I get here? People who inspire you become peers. You're doing something right.
Correct.
It's all about 1% and doing something that matters. And, it's DS for Dyslexia is not for me. It's for those who need it. 100%. So no one's going to chase your dream.
Yeah.
Good for you, pal. Man. Good for you.
Love it.
I told you guys are going to love this shit.
That's awesome.
So
love it. Love it.
All right. Now let's roll into our quick hit Q&A. We got 5 seconds to answer each question. It ain't rocket science, so you'll be all right.
And if it was rocket science, just make some shit up.
There you go. We'd be like, oh, hell, you probably fly
it. I could have called pointing you.
So go ahead, Clay. I'll let you rip first.
All right. Number 1. What's your favorite animal?
Penguin.
Nice. Okay.
Work or play?
Work.
What's your favorite word?
Discipline.
Top book recommendation for our listeners.
Think and Grow Rich.
Awesome.
Who's your hero?
My dad.
What's your deepest fear?
not being able to my biggest fear is not becoming who I can really be, not being the size I can be, not impacting the lives I can, not being who I was intended to be, and not achieving
Yes.
what I was to.
Yes. Love it, man.
Awesome.
Hey, I'm right with you on that. Love it. If you could go back in time to change any part of your life, would you?
Yes.
Okay. John.
What do you wish you learned sooner?
People's other opinions won't decide your future. What you do will.
Nice.
Love it. Do you prefer the soft cloud version or the sword version of the truth?
Sword.
Yes. Love my sword people.
Yeah.
What's your biggest strength?
Impacting lives.
And being awesome.
I appreciate.
I agree. I agree. Dylan, where can people find you at, man? Where can they link up with you, connect with you?
So, easiest thing is you look up Dylan Smith, dyslexia, everything pops up. But if you want to find the website, it's dsfordyslexia.com, no spaces. If you ever want to reach out to me, dsfordyslexia1@gmail.com. And I'll send my Instagram, but it will come up if you look me up on Google. It's D_4_dyslexia. And it was a moment when I was 19. It was a moment, and now we have changed it into a movement, and I'm excited for it.
That's awesome. We're excited for you too, man. And just the
Absolutely.
great things that you're doing. And again, for all the people out there that go through things, which is everybody, just having an opportunity to kind of just spread that message, spread that love, spread that you're not alone, spread that meaning, and going out and just living on fire and on purpose, man. That's the whole freaking thing. So I appreciate it, guys. I know you got value out of this. So here's what we ask you to do. Take this right now and go share it with one other person. That's it. Go rate, review, so that we go out and this message gets out there even further than what it's extended. Dylan, thank you, man. We appreciate you so much. Keep kicking ass and keep chasing those dreams, baby. And it's going to keep going. So appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother.